Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Six Pack Network. I am your host, Dylan Clemons, and today my co host is Joe Bond, founder of Fantasy Six Pack. And today we are continuing our training camp check in shows where we are going around to all 32 NFL teams and interviewing a beat reporter or writer on what they've seen at training camp. In this episode, we're talking the Houston Texans, and here helping us do so is Stephanie Stradley, who is a writer for the Houston Chronicle. Stephanie, appreciate you giving us your time in such a busy part of the year. How are you doing today?
I am excellent. I've just really enjoyed this particular year, so I'm happy to talk about the Texans.
Heck yeah.
Gonna be a good
Heck
one.
yeah.
I
Yep.
hope so.
Before we jump in the interview, I want to remind everyone, please hit that like button, please subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell for notifications so you know when a new video drops. And then head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans to become an all-access member. And that's where you get access to our award-winning rankings, draft cheat sheets, and F6P Discord, where you get all your custom league questions and custom league advice answered by anyone on the Fantasy Six Pack staff, and that truly is the best part. Right now, you could even save a little bit of cash by using promo code F6P NFL24 for 15% off. But without further ado, Joe, let's jump into things. Hit Stephanie with the first question we have for her.
Yeah, so CJ Stroud is where we're going to start here. And, he had a great rookie season, kind of took the NFL by storm there. With the new additions on this offense and just him taking another, just being 1 year, adding an extra year of seasoning for him. Thoughts on him possibly like leading the league in passing yards? Maybe like those touchdown numbers go up. What's your thoughts on Stroud?
I am as bullish on Stroud as you can possibly be, just because he's just such an impressive person. First of all, he's a ball delivery machine. This is the offense that you want, a ball delivery machine. This is an offense that can be elevating to a lot of different quarterbacks. It's a quarterback-friendly offense.
Yep.
So when you combine that with somebody who is objectively good at quarterbacking, that is really exciting. I saw it pretty early on last year. So my season preview last year was just like, I am unreservedly optimistic about the football direction of these Houston Texans. And he was the main reason, because, if you don't have a quarterback that can do things, you're kind of dead in the water. And he exceeded my expectations last year because, we have this idea that rookie quarterbacks need a dominant defense. They need a dominant running game. They need a dominant offensive line with an experienced center. And he didn't always have all of that. But the bigger picture is just this staff that they have for the Texans, from DeMeco Ryans on down, is just a really good staff as far as teaching and like the intricacies of the game, the very specifics. And they have the expectations for rookies to not be rookies. Like, if you're on the field, you're competing. And you could see that urgency of last year's camp. And that was when a lot of the guys in the building didn't know where the light switches are. Well, you have another year with the same staff, mostly, keeping Bobby Slowick, when a lot of teams were trying to look at him for a head coaching position, is a big deal. So you have a lot of consistency from last year to this year. And then you're adding some additional players. You kept a lot of the good guys that you had chemistry with, like Dalton Schultz at the tight end position. They have a chemistry. They added Cade Stover as a tight end, somebody that he played with at Ohio State, also really good hands. So you have a lot of pieces throughout that offense that are set up for him to succeed. I mean, I think that the open question, and just, open questions doesn't mean good or bad. It just means open. They haven't had their offensive line fully together through camp because they had guys coming back from injury. They're trying out different people in different positions. And last year, they didn't have a lot of consistency on the offensive line due to injuries and so forth. So with the running game in particular, it's nice to have that consistency, and it's also nice for protecting the quarterback. But I do think that CJ Stroud is really good at kind of protecting himself. I think the biggest open question for CJ Stroud is, this is a first place schedule. They're playing a lot more primetime games, so you don't have the noon starts every week. And it's a projected strength of schedule increase. You don't know how the teams are actually going to be this year until they play, but there's a set of games near the end of the season where they're playing some very difficult teams all in a row in a 10-game period. You're playing the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the Ravens in 10 days. So I don't know who made somebody mad during that time period. But D'Amico Ryans isn't making any excuses for that. And the way he's talked about the season with more primetime games is looking over the course of the season for times to give the team kind of breaks and kind of mini buys and keeping them fresh throughout the season. And so that's something that they have said very directly. So that's the open question, but I am very bullish on CJ Stroud. He just throws a really catchable ball. He's very accurate, and he has a good football mind, and he has the mindset that you want your quarterbacks to have, which is they eat, breathe, sleep football and be a good teammate. And he's that way. And then some. I'm really happy that he got matched with D'Amico Ryans because that's just a very good matchup.
Love it. That's great to hear. Looking at the running back side of things, and we got a little bit of a different look this year. Out goes Devin Singletary. He's in New York now, and they bring in Joe Mixon from the Cincinnati Bengals, who has really thrived off of volume in his career with the Bengals. Yes. Dameon Pierce is still here. He's kind of been a mainstay in this offense for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, he kind of fell out of favor last year, losing his job to Devin Singletary at a point in the season. Do you see Joe Mixon being kind of the bell cow in this offense, or does Dameon Pierce maybe get a little bit more of a role than us fantasy managers would like?
I'm actually real curious to see how the running game works because, as I mentioned before, they have guys coming back from injury on the offensive line. And for this particular scheme, everybody needs to work together. The offensive line needs to have a chemistry where 5 guys are one. They have to have their tight ends on the same page. They need CJ Stroud to do his fakes the right way because in this offense, the pass and the run is always supposed to look the same. And that's one of the benefits of Joe Mixon being a 3-down back. Like if you were going to the factory of, I need a 3-down back, you would pick up Joe Mixon because he has nice size for the position. He is almost automatic in short downs. In this scheme, it's really important not to be a feast or famine back. You always have to have positive yardage. You cannot be stoned at the line. You cannot be losing yardage. And Joe Mixon is that guy. And I don't know if you saw in the joint practices the catch that he made downfield, but that's a taste of the things that are possible with Joe Mixon in the backfield. He has very natural hands, and you want that because you want the defense to cover every bit of the field, and Joe Mixon forces you to do that. And then you have all of these targets, whether it's tight end and wide receiver, even fullback from time to time. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Because you have to respect him at the line, Joe Mixon at the line. You also, somebody's going to be open, and CJ Stroud's really excited to attack with his, as he put it during camp this year, the 5-headed monster. And people are like, what is the 5-headed monster? And the answer is whatever you're running up against the defense. And, they are very aware of the weaknesses in other defenses, and they will attack it. So if they have a problem covering tight ends or running backs going out of the backfield and catching, or number 1, number 2, number 3 wide receivers, they're going to attack whatever the defense is, what their weak link is. And they're going to find it through their early plays because they're going to be kind of touching to see, okay, how are they covering us and how can we take advantage of it? So I am extremely bullish about Joe Mixon. As it relates to Dameon Pierce, they've been very patient with him. He clearly has some talent. He's clearly a physical person. He has had the benefit in special teams. Like he had a special teams return last year when, he wasn't contributing as a running back as much near the end of the season, but he was now. His the players around him have been saying good things. Now he hasn't really shown it in the preseason, but they haven't really had a lot of the guys that they want to be working with on the offensive line necessarily. There hasn't been that many touches to really look at that. They're going to want to keep Joe Mixon fresh. It's been interesting to see the addition of Cam Akers coming off of 2 Achilles injuries.
Right.
He had that new Achilles surgery that's supposed to get guys to come back faster. He went to the same guy that Aaron Rodgers went to. And if you didn't know that he's had 2 Achilles injuries, you would not know. And he is actually a nice kind of complement to what Joe Mixon is, just size-wise and skills-wise. Like, he gives you a different look. If you see him catching, if you didn't know he was a running back, you might think he's a wide receiver because he's very natural hands catching. And then really now he hasn't worked as much on special teams as, let's say, Dameon Pierce is. So they're going to have some interesting discussions. I talked to Nick Caserio early in camp and said, hey, could you talk a little bit about the practice squad? And for him, practice squad is really important. So he may be putting, you can put veterans there now that you weren't able to do in the past. So, it'll be interesting to see how the run game develops over time, but they want it to be credible because they want to have all the tools in the toolbox. And you don't want to get to the postseason where you can't run against good run defense teams. You want to be able to close out games and burn clock or take advantage of what defenses can't do. And so they are really working this season to have all the tools in the toolbox. And what I've seen in camp so far, I'm like, oh, this could be kind of fun. Like, if you like fun football, the Texans are going to be fun. And I'm very much interested. Like, they surprised me in an amazing way last year, and I'm waiting to be more surprised.
Love it.
Yeah, no doubt. And probably again, the most exciting part of this team is this passing offense. So we're going to get back into this, and excuse me, adding Stephon Diggs to an already amazing wide receiver core with Nico Collins and Tank Dell is just like, wow, right?
Yeah.
But the question becomes, especially fantasy managers wondering like who to target in drafts, like, because 3 guys is tough to predict, at that point. It's like, so who has been the guy in camp that Stroud has sort of like focused on more than the others?
Well, I hate to tell fantasy people this, but bleep your fantasy team. That, like this, the way that the Texans are constructed is more for actual football than
right.
Hey, here's Andre Johnson, and he's the only credible wide receiver that you have to target, or you're an idiot. The ball's going to go where the ball is going to go. The biggest thing is that you're not going to be able to double any of those guys and think that you're going to get away with something. I mean, I definitely have seen him working a lot to make sure that there's a connection with Stephon Diggs, but it's kind of like how he was at Ohio State. He had a lot of pass catching Jessies over there, and he made sure the ball got to where the ball needed to go. And I don't think that he's going to favor any particular guy, but all of them are going to have their moments. All of them are going to have their moments. And, part of it is if you can look at what, especially later in the season where you start seeing trends, if you start seeing, what the defense has a hard time covering, whether it's on the edges or in the middle of the field or tight ends or running backs, that might give you some analysis. But I think they're just going to really try to put volume on everyone. So I would try to treat it like some of the better offenses when they have a lot of targets. So like it may be that if you could pick up any of those guys and they'll get something. Now, it's not going to be one guy getting a ton of volume, but it might be, each guy getting some. And, over the course of the season, sometimes people get hurt, like, happened last year. So if one guy goes down, hey, that's an opportunity for some of the other guys. So you'll just have to monitor. But like they had huge production out of wide receivers last year that are not part of the main five-headed monster this year. So I'm just going to tell you, there's going to be some passing. It's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of volume for everyone. And I think the ideal, script is what any team wants, but they might be actually able to do it, which is they're going to run enough to keep people honest and to keep third down short, or not even to get third down. And then they're going to want to put a ton of points on teams early. And then when you get into the second half of games, they're just going to want to run it out with just whoever they have as their running backs, and just put the whoop ass on people. Now, whether they can actually do that is a different story. I think really the open question is, how fast can this offensive line come together? And this staff has made me a believer in their ability to get the most out of people, because they had a collection of rookies at center last year. Like, people were going down, and they kept on going, and they actually started throwing more. So like, I don't know if that helps your fantasy folks much, but it does make for fun.
No, it's definitely information. And the one, I think the one sort of secondary question to this, and apologize, this is coming out of the blue here, but
Yeah.
like the pace of play for this team, I think will make a big difference. You're talking volume here, and that's a worry when you talk about these three super talented receivers plus Mixon plus Schultz, right? It's how consistent can they be? But if they can pick up their pace of play a little bit from last season, I think that would help. Is that something you've kind of seen in camp? They're sort of picking the pace up a little bit.
I think what they're going to be doing is very dependent on the kind of team that they're facing. So,
That makes sense.
or what they see in, what the defense is doing. So, as I said, I don't think that they're going to have one way that they're doing things. But to me, this staff, the way that they've come across is they're going to just see what's working. And, they don't have one set way of like, this is the way we're doing stuff. It may be that they don't want to pick up pace of play if, let's say, their defense has been on the field for a while. But I will tell you, their defense could be really fun. Really, really fun. Like, incredibly fun. Like,
yeah, they definitely got some dudes over on that side of the ball.
Well, I mean, that's the way, D'Amico Ryans is a defensive head coach, and he was a great defender. His first year here as a rookie was my first year writing for the Chronicle. And so I'm very familiar with the kind of person he is and how competitive he is. And he just added more to the defensive line. All of these guys have another year into the system. They added Al-Shar at the linebacker position. And, all of these free agents that they've added in are almost like additional coaches on the field. Like Diggs, everybody talks about how Diggs has been helpful on just like the little details that as you become more familiar with football just generally, you just know those details better. And so it feeds into each other, and they're all helping each other. They're like, one of the main things that D'Amico Ryans is all about is healthy competition. And and it's easy to talk about, hey, we're competing against each other to make us better. This really is, they want all the badasses on their team to help each other. And they know that not everybody's going to make this team, but they know that if they help the guy next to them, it's going to make the whole team better. So it's a very, very welcoming, helpful environment on both sides of the ball. And it's everything that you really want to see in football. Like, your dreams of football is what I've been watching the last 2 years. And it's just, if you like football, you just like it. You just like it. You just enjoy it.
Outstanding. Let's touch on one more pass catcher here, and that's Mr. Dalton Schultz, who had a
Yes.
pretty solid chemistry with CJ Stroud last year, especially in the red zone. This year, a little bit more mouth to feed in the offense. We've talked about that. Does he slide into more of just that red zone target, or is he somebody who you could see maybe get 70, 75 targets and be someone who can help move the chains for this offense?
Well, traditionally, this scheme likes the tight end position, just does. Um, I think that, just observationally, you know, they want the tight ends to stay healthy over the whole season. And, they
Mhm.
have a lot of obligations in this offense in terms of blocking and all that. Now, he's not really a blocking tight end. All of the tight ends that they have are willing blockers, but they are definitely people who are pass catchers. I've seen Schultz as being the guy that, like, if you really need to move the chains, he's there. Like everybody's covering all of, and if you have linebackers who cannot cover tight ends, it's going to be a long day for other teams. So that's one of those matchup things. Like if the linebackers are not up to the task, they're going to find them. And so I'm going to see him as being the guy that maybe gets, he's going to be active in game day. They're going to want, they're going to want to get the ball to him. And so a lot of it for the tight end position is just seeing who is healthy. But like all of the tight ends that they have catch, and he chose to come back,
Yeah.
like he's very happy to be a Houston Texan, and CJ Stroud is really happy that he is a Houston Texan. He's going to get targets every game as long as he's healthy. And yeah, and he's money in the red zone. Like he will maybe drop a pass, he like even if he drops a pass early in the game, CJ has no problem going right back to him. So like they definitely have a chemistry, and I wouldn't have any problems, targeting him as a tight end that you might pick up because yeah, there's a lot of mouth to feed, but they're going to want to put points up on people. They're going to want to
Absolutely.
because they had a lot of real close games last year, and they won some of those close games. I think the next evolution for a good team is to put the whoop ass on them. And, that's really hard to do in the modern NFL, but that is what is expected if you're going to be a good team. And I think that they have the capability to do it. It's just a question of doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want a piece of this Houston Texans offense. So if you
Yes.
miss on everybody else earlier and Dalton Schultz ends up being the guy you get, that's great, especially
I
at the
would,
tight end
yeah,
position.
I wouldn't
with
have a
Houston.
problem with it at all. I'd be happy to have Dalton Schultz on my fantasy team.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of fantasy, we are a fantasy focused channel and site here. So we have this one question we ask everybody who comes on and talks about their team. And it's, who's a player in camp that you've seen that is, going to surprise, good or bad, that fantasy managers may not be paying attention to, or just that just need to know about?
Yeah, I would say look to the defensive side of the ball. They've added some key rookies on that side of the ball. And then a player that may be on the ups would be Jalen Petrie. Jalen Petrie came in the league from Baylor, played the star position at Baylor, kind of like a Swiss Army knife to some degree. And he did really well his first year. Last year, he sat some, and he wasn't quite as good as he was the previous year. And he has been kind of, everybody's been saying great things in camp. He's done some great things in camp, and he has gotten more into being closer to the line of scrimmage, not showing what he's about to do, and then putting the whoop ass on the opposing quarterback. He's coming in, he's playing pretty much everything except for defensive tackle, it seems sometimes. So he is the guy that, he's a bright guy. His teammates love him. He definitely has skills. He himself has said that maybe at times he was trying too hard, and now he's just kind of second year in the same defense with some addition, D'Amico Ryan's made no excuses last year. Sometimes coaches will kind of say, well, I don't have all my own guys yet. And that was like, if you're on the team, you're his guy. And now he has more of his guys, and he's incorporating the good players that were in the previous regimes more to his style of football. And so if Jalen Petrie has a huge season and he's picking off balls, but like they have like Kalen Bullock, who has kind of shined a little bit in the preseason. They have all, Lassiter shines some in the preseason. Like they have high expectations for rookies and young players, because that is a difference maker in the league. If you can get guys, good players on the field faster and not making mistakes and learning while winning, that is a different maker. That's an edge with no excuses. Like, this is a rookie, or there'll be a big no. Like, if you're on the field, you're expected to perform. And if you're not performing, even if you were highly drafted, you'll sit for a little bit. And they don't have any problem taking veterans from other teams who might not have been like the perfect fit for that scheme. And they come to the Texans and they're in D'Amico's defense, and they're like, I love this defense. We get to attack the ball. Like, all of them is like, we don't have to think as much. We can just do. And like, so this defense could probably, assuming health and all the things that you have to assume in an injury sport, like this defense could wreck shop. And then of course their special teams, even in the bad years with Frank Ross, has been good. And Tommy Townsend is their punter. And he was good with Kansas City.
Yep.
And field position can be a big difference maker. And he loves pinning people. And the special teams have been consistently good since Frank Ross has been on board. So that's kind of one of those sneaky things that, it's not going to be on ESPN about, ooh, the punter. But yeah, ooh, the punter is what I'm going to tell you.
Awesome.
No, great to hear. Our IDP crowd will love to hear that the defense side is picking up. So, all right, Stephanie, I want to thank you for coming on. This was great information. Before we close out, though, I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on this season.
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is on X, that's the channel I use the most, just because it's the best one to watch sports with, and at Steph Stradley, just like it's there. I should be putting my massive preview up anytime now.
Okay.
Sometimes it's hard to put it all down, but I'm glad that there's things like podcasts so that my enthusiasm for it can kind of be infused out onto the world. And so, yeah, like this could be fun. So yeah, follow me on Twitter. If you have any specific questions that we didn't talk about here, I love to be like, that's my favorite thing. I want your fantasy teams to make money. Like, the only reason why I have followers right now is I put people on Arian Foster early and people made money. I want people to thrive, and I want people to make money. And so if any information I can give you for the Texans helps you make money, let's go.
I like it. All right, Stephanie. Well, again, thank you. And hopefully we can do this again.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All right. So that is it for our Houston Texan training camp report. Again, I want to thank Stephanie for coming on. This was a great bit of information that she shared. And hopefully, like she said, you can take some of this information and go win some money with your fantasy teams. I know I'm taking a lot of this information. I wish I had known some of this before my draft yesterday. But yeah, before we go, though, just want to remind you, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave those comments. We appreciate it. And of course, check out the rest of these on our playlist, wherever you watch or listen. See ya.